Hey guys, this is about mapping tonal harmony. It's my favorite app ever. It is a far out way to visually understand the most complex songs. Left an S out. Okay, so just a 5 point conceptual preview. We're going to see circles that have the numbers arranged according to the circle that fits. I'm metaphorizing this to moons. So we're on a planet that has two moons, and each of the moons has two moons. And really, it's actually each substitution on the moon has two moons. So a moon has more than two moons. But all moons are the same. They have the same names. The subdominant and the dominant, or the sub and dom. Really, the 4 and 5. You could say every moon has those two moons if you want to keep going. So each moon keeps the same number location. So wherever 5 is on the circle of fifths, if there's a 5 in that moon, it'll be in the same, like according to the clock, it'll be at basically 1 o'clock. And 2 will sort of be at 2 o'clock. And so you can always find that order to help you know exactly how to read the map. So now, fourth concept, real home versus temporary home. So what I'm saying is what's called the tonic, that's our real home. That's I'm representing as Earth. And then Earth has two moons, but we can go to those moons and make them temporary homes. And so then when we do that, we can visit that moon's moons. And when we get back to the moon after visiting its moons, it feels like we've gotten home. And the moons of moons generally show less of the substitutions. Like basically, instead of going to the top of the moon, I could go to the left side or the right side of the moon. But as we go to moons of moons, you just mostly have 2 and 5 and sub 5. And then there's 3 moves, substitutions, that's going to different parts of the moon, staying in the same section, same moon, but just a different part of the moon. Borrowing from minor, that means if you're in a major key, you're on the outside of the moon, you go to the inside of the moon. And temporary home moons, right? Going to the moons of moons and then going to the moon, making it a temporary home. So that's the preamble, and now there's some dogs looking at the tonal harmony map, which we'll look at close up. But first, we have moons. So, okay, what do I have? First, I have the circle of fifths, and you can see it on the outside and on the inside. So, when it's outside, it's major, and when it's inside, it's minor. And then, if it's a major key, it's going to show both the outside and the inside. That looks like a lot right there. It doesn't show it all like that. But the idea is both outside and inside get shown because we can borrow from minor. If we're in a minor key, we stick to the inside ones only because we can't borrow from major. Alrighty, so now we start to make it simpler. Here's what I will show as Earth. Right now I'm showing it as another moon, but it has 1, 6, and flat 3. It has 2 1s, 2 6s, and 1 flat 3. So it's 3 things inside in the minor and 2 outside in the major, just 1 and 6. And you can see they're ordered. The one on the right just shows the whole order, so you can see that they're sticking with the clock pattern of where 1, 6, and flat 3 are. Second moon, the subdominant moon, has 4s, 2s, and a flicks. And what makes this make sense, or at least for the 4s and the 2s, a 2 chord is playing the notes 2, 4, and 6, or the intervals, and a 4 chord is playing the intervals 4, 6, and high 1. So both of them have a 4 and a 6, sort of like the even section. But we won't address the flat 6 as part of that logic right now. So I got a phone call, but to jump back on it, here's the dominant moon, or the 5 moon really, and it has the 5, the sev, and the flat sev. And if we do our logic before, the evens logic, and sharing two intervals logic, that happens with the 5 and the 7. The 5 chord is 5, 7, 2, and the 7 chord is 7, 2, 4. So they both have 7 and 2. That's why they're part of the same moon. And so we'll leave the flat 7 out of that logic for now. But you can see this is the dominant moon, and this moon generally takes us back to Earth. Okay. So now here's what the two moons look like from Earth. If we're looking at our moons, we don't see Earth, we just see our two moons. The left moon is the subdominant moon, and the right moon is the dominant moon. And the N6 is a Neapolitan 6. We'll get to that later too. But you can see if you're in a major key, you can say instead of going to the 4, if it was a 1, 4, 5, I could go to the 2, I could go to the 4 minor or the 2 minor, or I could go to the flicks instead. And then when I go to the 5, I could, instead of going to the 5, I could borrow from minor and go to the flev, or the 5 minor, or the 7, which would be a different type of chord. It won't be a minor, it'd be a diminished of sorts, but it'd be a different type of diminished than this one. But you can just substitute by going to a different part of the moon. Now, here are moons of moons. So again, we took away some options. We don't generally go to the 4 when we go to the moons of moons. We go to the 2 or the sub 2. We'll get into that later in the sub 5 and the N6. We'll get into those later. But you can see the slash just means of. So this is the minor 2 of whatever moon or whatever part of a moon we came from. If we came from the 2 part of the sub-moon, this would be a 2 of 2, or a minor 2 of 2. If we came from the 4 part of that moon, it would be a same moon, it would be the sub-moon, be a 2 of 4. So these slashes just mean, there should be a slash there, just mean of, right? Moons of moons have the slashes. Cool. Next, we have the moon moving. It's always nice. And then here we can see the moons with the moons of moons. So the 5 moon has its 2 moons, but really each part of the moon can have moons, right? We can have moons from the 7 or the 5 or the flat 7. We could have moons from the 2, the 4, or the flat 6. But once we have moons of moons, they all look the same, right? You have the sub-moon and the dominant moon, the 2s, the 5s, the 7s, the subs, all like that. So here it is with Earth, woohoo! And that's really how it works. So now when we start to look at songs moving, unlike a Charlie Parker song, which we're about to do, it's going to make sense. We're either doing substitutions, where we can also borrow from minor, 2 types of substitutions, or we go to the secondary dominants, they're called, where we go to the moons of moons. And this is like winding up the motion, right? Rather than going straight to 4, straight to 2, we'll wind them up by going to the 2 of the 2, or the 2 of the 4, and then the 5 of the 4, maybe. Oftentimes it does both. And then, it delays it, and then when we get there, it feels like it resolved something, even though we're not totally done resolving. We're still going to go to the dominant part, maybe wind that up before we get there, and then go home. Cool. And so why is 6 part of the 1? Well, 1, it's the relative minor, which is very easy to go back and forth between the 2 keys and basically act like the 6 is now the 1, even if ultimately we keep the same 1, make it a major song. But yeah, a 6 chord is 6, 1, 3, and a 1 chord is 1, 3, 5. So they both share a 1 and a 3. So you can see the math to this makes a ton of sense. But where all this goes is to show you, okay, the 2 of 4 is a type a 5. That's a 5. If I go in major second from a 4, I get to a 5. But what's the difference between this part of the map, the 2 of the 4, and just the 5? It's what type of chord it is. So here it might be a dominant 7th chord, and here it might be a minor 7th chord. And so when we do the minor 7th chord, we're not just making the 5 a minor 7 right now. No, we're making it a 2 of the 4. And that's how you understand, if it was G, if G was the dominant one, G7 would be here, but G minor 7 would be over here. So that's what these are explaining. What chord types, might be the same letters that are down here, but different chord types, and therefore they function differently on the map. And you can see them winding stuff up, or substituting, or borrowing from minor. And our last slide is the map. You can see here's in Roman numerals 1 and 6, and the 6 minor, and the 1 minor, and the flat 3 minor. In the 4 section, you got the 4 major, and the 2 from the major key. Doesn't mean it's a major chord. And then the 2 from the minor key, and the 4 from the minor key, and the flat 6 from the minor key. You can see the moons of the 4. It even says 2 of 4, 5 of 4. You can get that to not say those slashes, but it's helpful. Now I'm over here. You see, that's the 2 of 5 and the 5 of 5. Oh, you can't see my mouse. Anyway, let's go to the app. Alrighty. Oh, I can't go to the app in this, so I'll follow this up with another video with the app.